ladies, welcome back. I always forget to introduce this channel to new viewers. So on here, I know I mentioned before I go by the name Tracy, but actually I'm going to use my government name. Well, Tracy is my middle name. I'm going to use my name Chama on here because this channel is called Advancing Biblical Femininity. And I'm going to go just by my actual first name. But I always forget to introduce this channel for new viewers. So hi, my name is Chama. This channel is called Advancing Biblical Femininity, where I just want to lift biblical femininity and just to teach women about how to be a godly woman. And my goal is for women to return back to the way God intended through the teachings that I give. That is my goal. If you're in the world and you take your beliefs from the world and go by what the world says that a woman is, this channel is not going to be your cup of tea. But all are welcome. All comments are welcome as long as they're not blatantly disrespectful. Otherwise, it's going to get deleted. But all are welcome. All comments are welcome. All are welcome to join and listen. And as you can see, I got the mic today. I really need to invest in a boomstick. And I'm not too sure about this microphone because sometimes I feel like it's on, sometimes I don't feel like it's on. Just thought I would bring it out because I didn't bring it out the previous video. The previous video, I didn't bring it out. As you can see from the title, I'm going to talk about what I understand on what is the design of a woman. And nothing much to say. Let's get started. I thought this would be a very interesting video to share on what I understand about what the design of a woman is. And we went over what femininity is in the previous videos. I went over what femininity is in the previous videos. So some things are going to be repeated. How I believe women are designed and how we are wired is first I want to go over submission. Us as women generally want to be protected, led, and covered. And this is submission. The nature of us, and I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, is to submit. We want to be led. And before you start making any thoughts or judgments, I want to give examples on why this is so. But yeah, the role, well, I want to use role, but we are designed to be submissive because deep down we want to be led. Us as women generally. And that's what makes us submissive. Whether it's through, if you desire a husband, a father, or a spiritual leader in your church, if you're a Christian, we all deep down want to be led. When these things are mentioned, there are going to be arguments like the different personalities and just people in the world. But I honestly believe because of sin, we as women have drifted away from that blueprint and that design. I'm going to go back to our relations with men, the different men I mentioned. If you're desiring a husband, father, or a spiritual leader in your church, our submission to them is not going to be the same. They're all going to be different because of what they are to us in relation to us. Like the same way you would submit to your father is not the way you would submit to your spiritual leader. And the same way you submit to your husband is not going to be the same. They're all different. And have you ever heard of that saying where it's like, if the man is, you don't have to submit to any man if he's not your husband, which is I guess in some sense, I see where they're coming from, because it's like in those different relations, we don't submit to them the same way. There are certain limitations within each relationship. We don't all submit to them the same way. It depends on the context. I don't know why I feel like this mic's never on. I don't know. But yeah, we wouldn't submit to them the same way, obviously. Obviously, with the husband, it's supposed to be very close. So that is a whole different outlook than the other relationships we have with different figures, male figures in our lives. But we all, as women, have that desire deep down to want to be led. I don't want to get into other aspects of femininity because I do see where some women come with the personality thing. Some women who have taught this femininity thing, some of them, they'll say that, oh, you have to be soft-spoken, things like decor. I'm not really a decor person. Well, I like to decorate, but the way my room is and even my car, it's not as decorative as a woman would expect it to be. And I'm in the process of it, but they'll mention things like decor or being soft-spoken, which some women are more feminine in other areas than other women. But the core main things I'm going to discuss this evening are what we as all of us women should generally should have. Like I just went over submission, us wanting to be led. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the commonality among all of us women I believe we're all wired to do. I believe generally that every woman has this desire or want deep down to submit. It's just for one to tap into it. And you can only come to this full understanding if you have a relationship with God. And I want to give examples of how we have this deep down we want to be led. Part of the reason why there will be arguments is because submission is associated in this world oftentimes with a negative connotation, when submission can be a good thing. I remember one of the ladies, when I was at work, was taking pride in saying that, oh, my husband never told me to do anything. She was telling the story of how, like, she asked her husband, when did you ever tell me to do anything? Oh, I've never, and her husband said, oh, I never tell you to do anything. When submission doesn't have to be negative, it can be beneficial and a good thing for us women. I remember before, when I tried to find my identity in a relationship, and I tried to initiate to a guy that I had a crush on, and I just felt so wrong about it. It felt like it was so much work. And I knew what I was doing was wrong because I was out of order. Deep down, I wanted to be led. I didn't want to carry that responsibility of leading a relationship. And this just shows the nature of us women, that we desire deep down to be led by a man, because the men are desired to be leaders. Biblically, another benefit to submission as a woman is, if you're married, if you desire to be married, these are things to think about the husband being accountable. we're not held responsible for the way we carried the family. That's on the man. And that's such a relief because it's like, oh, I don't have this big, huge responsibility. That's for the man to carry. So hearing things like this is a relief. Well, that all depends on the type of man that you marry. Prayerfully, you should marry, well, Christians know this, believer. And to see the fruit of this man as well. Then you wouldn't worry as much because you trust God with him and God's in it. But I'm just thinking about all these things about the man has a huge responsibility, and that's a relief to the wife because she doesn't have as big as a responsibility. Doesn't it sound good that we as women don't have to do anything but just be ourselves? Just authentically be ourselves and just to be. Doesn't that sound like a relief? That we don't have to do anything but just be? This is a blessing for us. Another main thing is being joyful and compassionate. I don't believe women are as straightforward as men. And have you ladies, have you heard that expression of we as women tend to overthink a lot? And I think coming from that, we tend to be compassionate towards others because part of it is like, oh, what is this person going to say? What if this person thinks this? What if this? A lot goes through our minds as women, I believe. And generally we tend to overthink. And by that kind of, part of that makes us compassionate and considering others' feelings. Whereas men are just simple-minded and are straightforward. Being joyful as a woman is that we don't take life as seriously. We take life easy, I mean. I don't believe we're as serious as men. Like, we can get excited for things that seem little. I also wanted to mention that this is not in any way saying that men can't be joyful or compassionate. If you're a practicing Christian, those are the fruits of the Spirit: joyful and gentleness, kindness. And this is also not to say that men don't submit, because all of us Christians have to submit to God. We have to submit to the spiritual leaders. Even a husband, in a way, submits to a wife too. The husband submits to the wife as well. But it's a different context. It's not the same submission as a woman would. But what I'm trying to say is that this is one of the main roles of women and how I believe women are better at it. Another main commonality is receiving well. Deep down, we as women, I want you to search deep down with all these things I'm mentioning and think deep down, we would like help. And currently, if you've been on this femininity journey, if you dibble-dabbled into it or have seen videos, you've heard this thing about receiving well. And I've seen this issue among us women about some of us not receiving well. Like complaining about what was given to you, or just taking it on yourself and not wanting help. But to receive well is to accept what you have been given with gratitude, and also accepting help. Deep down, search within yourself. We as women do want help. And I just want to discuss on this thing of single mothers, this circumstance, this situation, this scenario, on what I've heard from about single women sharing their opinions, and how honestly it has been. Being a single mother is hard, and they would deeply desire help. That is not easy being a single mother. So I think of scenarios and circumstances like that. So we as women are generally receptive. It is beneficial as a woman to be on the receiving end. Another commonality amongst all of us as women is nurturing. I know I need to get better at this, but this is another commonality among us women, to nurture. That's why I believe a majority of us women want to become mothers. And motherhood is not the only way that we can nurture. We can nurture pets. If you have a pet, you can nurture. If you're a gardener, you can tend to your plants. Being a teacher has also taught me about how to nurture kids. There's different ways that you can nurture. Taking care of your sick mother or your grandmother. These are all ways we can nurture. I also want to give an example on seeing a crying baby. Our women instincts in us, we want to do something to comfort that baby. Anyway, this depends on the closeness you are with the parents. But deep down inside us, we have that feeling to we want to comfort this crying baby when you walk into a room. There have been times when their children were crying. It's like I know what to do, but I fail at executing it. And then then there's also other factors. It's like it depends on the closeness I am with the child or with the parents. But it shows that deep desire. What I'm trying to get at is that we all have that we have deep down in us that desire to do something to comfort the crying child. Even if we don't do anything. But yeah, those are all the commonalities I believe we as women are wired to do in our design, which is submission, being joyful, compassionate, being receptive, and being nurturing. And I can say as I have embraced biblical femininity and have been on this femininity journey, which has been a journey. Sometimes I fail, but I thank God that I recognize my mistakes. But since I've embraced biblical femininity, I've become more joyful and peaceful as I've tapped into what God intended for me as a woman, knowing my role as I've studied chapters like 1 Peter 3, verse 4. I've learned that it's beneficial. That's it for this video. This is how I honestly believe generally all of us women are wired to do. And it's just for you to tap into what God intended for you as a woman, to become a godly woman, which I believe is beneficial. As I told you, I've become more joyful and peaceful as I've decided to tap into biblical femininity and what it is for me to be a godly woman. But it first starts with knowing your Creator and having a relationship with Him. Then He'll start revealing things to you on how He wants you to live and about your identity. Your identity first is a child of God. Once you come to trust Jesus as your Lord and Savior and believe in Jesus, then God will start to reveal other parts to you about yourself. This is how I came to the enlightenment of all these things. I need just a thought. I need a closing phrase to close out a video. these videos. I've never thought of a closing phrase to close out the videos, but I need a closing phrase. And I just thought of one where I want to reintroduce my goal on this channel. That this is biblical femininity, where my goal is to uplift and promote the heck out of biblical femininity in a world where it is looked down upon and absent. To say no, we can return back to this, and that it is our strength. All right, ladies, that's all I have for you. See you in the next video. Bye. I am a woman of God, in my nature, in my thoughts. I am a woman of God, a quiet and gentle spirit.